What is wrong with barbering? Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. In this video, I'm going to say some controversial things. I used to post a lot of controversial stuff, and I've been so much more mellow and laid back the last few years. But today I had some thoughts and I wanted to put it out in a video, and there's no easier way to say it than, hey, there's some things wrong with barbering. To some people, it's going to look like I'm just being such a hater and I'm throwing shade, as the kids would say. But really, some of the things I'm going to point out here, I believe, are some truths that are hard to hear. And ultimately, the goal of this video is to edify the barbering industry and kind of help them get ahead, if that makes sense. Not that I think I'm so smart and bright and like, oh, I figured out what no barbers can figure out. It's just observations that I've made, being that I've worked so much between the salon industry, which is like a multi-freaking-billion-dollar industry, and the barbering industry, which is kind of the little cousin of the salon industry. And so, you know, it's kind of a known thing that salons are, and salon businesses, that's like big business. And barbering has always been kind of looked at as like I said, the little cousin of hairdressing. So not that I look at it that way. I intermingle in both circles, but I think there's a lot of things that barbers do and think that you can find online, and I'm going to cite some examples in this video, that really hold back the barbering industry. If you're a barber and you got thick skin and you're ready to hear some stuff, here it goes. Let me also be clear, and I kind of assumed this would go without saying, but I'll just say it just in case. There are stylists who do some of these bad barber things, and there are barbers who have never done some of these bad barber things. Like, I obviously can't generalize for all of barbers do this and no stylists do it. This is not a barbers versus stylist thing. It's just that the things I'm going to point out, I see a lot more in barbering circles than I see in salon circles, but I see it all over the place. And I partake in it. That's how I know about this. It's not like I'm just like, oh, I'm up here doing everything right and you're all doing it wrong. Like, I know about this stuff because I've done this stuff and I've been a part of this. So the first thing wrong with barbering today is know-it-allism. If you want to get a more clear picture of what I'm talking about here, Google the Dunning-Kruger effect. When I first learned about this principle, I was like, oh my gosh, that is hair. Like, that is, you see that in hair so much. If you want to see the most confident technicians in the world, go to a barbering class, like for students, people who don't even have their license yet. You will find people who just think they are the best of the best. I once went and did a scissor cut and business talk at a barbering school. And in this class, literally about half the students, I'm not even exaggerating this, realistically probably could fade better than me. And they learned how on YouTube and maybe in their first couple weeks of barbering school and cutting in the garage or whatever. But they knew how to fade really well. And everything I was saying about the scissors, everything I was talking about with business, they completely tuned out. Some of them were even like heckling me. And it was just such a great example of this concept. Like, those kids, they already had it all figured out. You know, in their minds, good fades sell and better fades sell better. And that's all there was to hair, is if you could fade good, people will want to come to you. And if you could fade better, more people will want to come to you. And since they knew that fact, they were just set. They didn't need to know a scissor cut. They didn't need to know about business practices, how to raise your prices, any of that. So obviously with students, you'll see this Dunning-Kruger effect pretty extensively. And you see it in the salon half, the cosmetology half too. You see it everywhere. But I've seen people who've been cutting hair 10, 15, 20 years who still kind of have this Dunning-Kruger effect where they are absolute masters at fading hair, but they don't know how to do anything else with hair. And if you ask them, oh, I'm a master barber. I could do it all. I'm like, but can you do it all? So the way this works, and I'm going to steal this little illustration from multiple sources online that have pointed out the same effect. Like, you could be a master of fading hair, and that's this right here. And there are shops and demographics of clients who, that's all they want is like a good fade and a good lineup, and all you need to know is that. But then, if you throw in like, what if a client wants a scissor cut? What if he wants his hair blow dried? Well, suddenly there's more to know. And then if you want to factor in like, what about hair color? You know, some barbers color hair. And then you want to factor in other things like, let's say you want to own a shop one day. That's a thing to know. These days with social media and everything, we've always been in charge of our own marketing, but now we have more tools and availability to be in charge of our own marketing. And so you factor that in, how to market yourself. And now suddenly knowing everything about fades compared to everything that you could know is really small. And this is not even to speak of things that I don't know, like how to curl hair or do an updo. I don't know how to do any of that. But the point being, it's really easy. If you think all barbering is fades and lineups, it's really easy to, by the end of halfway through barbering school, to feel like you know it all. But once you start realizing, like, hang on, some clients might want a blow dry. Some clients might want an all scissor cut. Some clients might want, whatever the hell else a client might want, or whatever other aspects go into the business of cutting hair. Suddenly the world of what hair is and can be starts to grow. And a lot of us, I see this all the time with barbers, like they'll see something that they don't agree with, like a scissor fade, for example. And instead of saying, hey, that's a thing that I don't know about, or even, being a barber and buying a DSLR to market yourself on Instagram. Well, that's something I don't know about, and it's stupid and pointless, and we shouldn't be doing it. Or like enhancements is another one, instead of going, oh, enhancements is a thing that some clients want, I'm gonna learn how to do that. You just kind of like shut it out and pretend it's not there because you want to keep your world this big where you know everything. You don't want the world to get bigger to where you know less in comparison to what there is to be known. Now, the point of all this, like, I don't know everything, and I'm not claiming to know everything. Like, I don't know how to curl hair, I don't know how to do updos, I don't know how to do color, I don't know how to own or manage a salon or barbershop. There's so much stuff I don't know. But the point is, if you think you know everything, and you're actively working to make sure that everything that there is to be known, it is out of your life and out of your mindset, you will not grow. You will grow to know everything about fades, but again, fades is like this compared to what could be done, can be done. So even if you're working in like a fades and lineups barbershop and that's all you're doing and you're busy and you're happy and you're enjoying all of it, I'm not trying to come in here and say, hey, you're not doing enough, you got to learn how to curl hair. If you're happy doing all that, freaking cool. But call a spade a spade. Don't say I'm the best there is. Say I'm a specialist and I'm the best there is at what I do. There's a whole bunch that I don't know, but what I do know, I know very well. And that's about how I kind of talk about myself. Like, I don't know how to do a lot of things. I turn clients away, not all the time, but if a client comes in and wants something I don't do, I send them away. So you got to know what you know, but also know what you don't know and respect that you know this much compared to what can be known. And so it's something I see all the time in the barber industry. If you look at like barbershop repost pages, you'll see all the comments are almost just hard to read, how people just think they're so good and so talented because all they know how to do is a really, really good fade and they know nothing else. So be aware of that and call a spade a spade. If you're really good at one thing, you're a specialist. You're not the best there is, you're a specialist, and you might be the best there is at that one specialty, that one little niche. And there's nothing wrong with being a specialist and working in a niche, but there's everything wrong with thinking that that niche is all that there is. And I think that's something that holds barbers back, is they focus so much on that. They don't look at the rest of what everything else hair can do or can be or can mean, or how it can turn a profit or how it can make someone's day feel better. And they don't think about how to market it. And they don't go into these bigger, broader pictures, and they just focus on this fade. And I'm going to talk way more about this in a minute. You have to know what you don't know before you can start to know more. So at least admitting that there's a whole bunch of stuff you don't know that maybe you should or maybe you don't believe you should know. But by admitting that, you leave the door open to growth. And if you don't admit that there's anything you need to know that you don't know yet, there's no door. It's a solid wall. There's no growth there. So the second thing is a time is money mentality. If I work more hours and if I work faster, I make more money. You can see this. If you go look at any post of a barber doing a fade with scissors and you go look at the comments, you'll see tons and tons of barbers saying, this is stupid, this is pointless, time is money, that takes too long. So it's a very prevalent thing in the barber industry. It exists in the salon too, but in barbering, there's this like big idea that more cuts and faster cuts and longer hours is the way to success. You got to be the first one in the shop to get there and the last one to leave. Now, I agree. If you're brand new and you're trying to like get your 10,000 hours in to become a master at doing what you're doing, yes, be there all the time to take all the clients possible. But if your plan to grow and make more and earn more and be more successful is to just work more hours, you have to understand that while that can work, and absolutely can work, you can make more money if you work more hours, duh, there's a limit to it. You know, realistically, we could probably cut hair for 12 hours in a day. It would be hard. Some of us do it all the time, but how do you get a raise then? You work 15 hours? Do you work 18 hours? At some point, you can't work any more hours in the day. And then, you know, if the idea of a faster haircut, let's say you got your haircuts down to 15 minutes, and I know people who do 15-minute haircuts all day long. If that's what's working for you, how do you get a raise then? You start doing 12-minute haircuts or 10-minute haircuts? You know, I'm not saying a 10-minute haircut can't be done, But I am saying very probably if you start to push toward that 10 or 12-minute mark, you absolutely very likely will start to skimp in your quality. And I'm not just talking about the technical quality of how the haircut turns out, because some people could do really fast fades that look really good, but the client experience, they get down in the chair and they go, hey, what's new? And you're like, can't talk. Got to do 10-minute haircuts if I want to make money. At some point, a haircut can only be so fast, and once it becomes faster than so fast, then the quality degrades, either of the experience or the actual technical work. Not to mention, if you're working at the fastest pace possible, can you do your 12-hour day that you think you're going to do? So working longer hours and doing faster haircuts is like such a big barbershop mentality, and it's got limits on it. When you max out, let's say you max out, you're doing the 15-minute haircuts and you're doing them 12 hours a day, like that's pretty stinking amazing. But if you're doing that long term, if that's your long-term plan, that's how I'm growing, you will burn out. The turnover rate in the hair industry is like ridiculous. Really, it's not uncommon for people to not make it to 5 years of barbering, and then it's really uncommon for people to make it past 10 years, like because you burn out. And if you're working as fast as you can, as long as you can, as often as you can, you will burn out. And so this is not a long-term solution. This is something that might work like if you got a holiday rush and you're like, okay, so for the month of December, I'm working 12-hour days. You could do that short term, and then you take a nice long vacation in January, but this is not a business practice that is not a viable goal. And you might know some people who have been able to do really fast haircuts for really long hours for a really long time, but you have to understand that they're kind of unicorns. Like it takes some level of natural skill. You have to maybe have the right personality for it even to crank out 35 haircuts a day for 20 years. Like not everybody can do that. And if that's your business plan is faster haircuts for longer hours, then you kind of almost also have to like buy a lottery ticket, because you might not have what it takes to do that kind of work for those many years, But let's flip the script a little bit here. If you're doing the fastest haircuts you can do and your quality starts to drop, again, whether technically or through the experience of the haircut, you can break the cycle and you can say, you know what, this might take longer, but every single client is getting a hot towel. Just something simple like that. Now, rather than thinking about being faster and working longer, you're thinking about the quality of your service and how the client feels. And it's a whole long other topic that will be its own video, but as you start to increase the quality, your demand goes up, which makes your price eventually have to go up. And so when you stop thinking time is money, and that's the bottom line, and you start thinking, well, what can I do to make my haircut look a little better, feel a little better, be more desirable? What can I do to make the client just feel greater about themselves when they leave? When you start thinking in that mindset, your haircuts eventually become worth more. Listen, I know people personally who charge $500 a haircut. I've met people and seen menus where people charge $800 a haircut. So if your plan for growth is do faster haircuts, there's a limit there because a haircut can only be so fast. If your plan is work longer hours in the day, there's a limit there because there's only so many hours in a day and only so many hours you could be good to cut hair. But if your plan is I'm going to slow down and I'm going to try to do whatever I can do to make the client feel better and have a better experience and possibly even do a better haircut, there's no limit there. You could charge $800 a haircut someday, which obviously that's like the crazy extreme end there. But to even get moving in that direction, you have to drop the time is money mentality. You have to stop the thought that, well, if I'm not sweating and grinding and beat by the end of the day, then I didn't earn it. Like there's a point where you have to go, okay, McDonald's sold a billion hamburgers or whatever. Do I want to be McDonald's? Or do I want to make a Wagyu steak burger with truffle shavings on it and take my time and enjoy creating something unique and higher quality, if that makes sense? So you can't be the fastest and have time is money mentality and also be the best. Now, let me go back to the last point that I made here. If you are the type, if you are stuck in a mindset where fades and lineups are everything and you don't need to know anything else because the whole world of hair as you see it is yours and you understand everything there is to understand, you might very well have the kind of confidence to believe, and I see this comment all the time on posts about this, you might have the confidence to believe, I can be the fastest and work the longest hours and also do the best haircuts. If anybody's saying that, they just don't understand their own limitations and they don't understand business. I mean, Every business in the world knows that there's quality, speed, and price, and one of them is going to have to give. But barbers who think that they're just the best in the world because they understand fades, they think that they're an exception to that rule. They think they're going to be the best of all three somehow. And I've seen this comment so many times. Ivan Zoot posts about this topic a lot. And if you go read his comments, you'll see barbers who are so sure that they can be everything to all people by knowing this much about barbering. Once you begin to know what you don't know and understand that what you know is a very small part of what there is to be known, you realize you have something: limitations. Once you realize you have limitations, you're able to actively be better at the things that you want to be better at. You can actively choose, I'm going to take more time with every client. I'm going to shampoo every head. I'm going to fully blow dry every haircut, every single haircut, even if it's this long. You can actively make those decisions because you know there's limitations. If I work faster, it's a dead end. Eventually I can't work any faster. If I work longer, it's a dead end. Eventually I can't work 24 hours a day. And so you can actively decide, well, maybe I will do something to improve the quality of my work. And I just feel like a lot of barbers aren't doing this. A lot of barbers are just wanting to, time is money, time is money, time is money. So the third thing wrong with barbering is hyper-focus on some details and completely ignoring other details of a haircut or even a haircut service. Let me just put on my barber glasses to show you what that looks like. So when I put these on, I see the world through a barber's eyes. Now I'm just gonna glance at some haircuts here. Yeah, that one's pretty good. That one sucks. Tell me you've seen this. A barber will look at a haircut that's styled beautifully, it's super suitable to the client, it's just a nice haircut, and then they go out of their way to say, there's a spot in the fade. You missed a spot. Barbers will so hyper-focus on the fade in the lineup that they just, it's kind of like I said about what you know and you don't know earlier. If the cowlick's sticking up, instead of going, oh, that cowlick's sticking up, that's my problem, I'm the barber, let me figure out how to address that. They go, no, that doesn't matter, the fade's good. Let me back up a little here and correct myself before I offend too many people. There are barbershops, there are competitions, there are scenes, there are forums, there are Instagram accounts that are dedicated to the fade in the lineup. And there's nothing wrong with that if you know that that's the little niche that you want to be in. But what happens sometimes is a haircut will creep into that scene, or somebody from that scene will leave that scene, and then they'll see this haircut that maybe is expertly styled and it's super suitable to the client. It just fits their style so nicely, and like the shape of the haircut is just rad. And then they'll again go, wait a minute, no, there's a spot in that fade, that's bad. That's where it becomes a problem, is when this hyper focus on certain technical aspects of the haircut, the fade, the lineup, overpower your ability to see everything that hair can be. I think it prevents like an assimilation of barbers into the rest of the scene, because like I was at a trade show a few years ago where they had a whole area downstairs dedicated to barbering. They had booths and everything down there, and barbers were pissed, like, why aren't we upstairs with everybody else? Why do we have our own area? And thinking back, like, maybe it was kind of a dick move for them to put the barbers down there, but at the same time, the barbers aren't interested in a curling iron, they're not interested in hair color lines, they're not interested in anything happening upstairs. And so they're like, hey, we'll give you your own area where you can be interested in what you're interested in. And so this hyper focus on certain kinds of haircuts and certain aspects of certain kinds of haircuts, like if all a haircut is to you is a fade in a lineup, to the point that you feel an emotion when a haircut doesn't have a good fade or lineup, and you can't accept that haircut because it's just, well, the fade's not good, so I can't look past that. You are part of the problem. You're probably part of the problem. So there are tons of barbershops and barbering communities and things today that are actually doing scissor cuts and blow drying hair. And so the whole scene has completely changed in the last like 5 years, but not everybody's making this kind of attempt to grow and do more than just fades. And again, if you're happy and busy doing just fades, be happy and busy doing just fades. But you can't look at a haircut and say, well, that's just bad because it doesn't have a good fade, because that's, again, your world being this big. When you look at a haircut that doesn't fit in your little box of perfect fades, you have to go, well, that's something I don't do. Maybe it's good. I don't understand it. Call it that. You don't have to say it's garbage because there's a spot in the fade. There's other things going on there. So let me point out some things that I've just witnessed over the years dealing with people online. So one of the most common messages and comments that I get, both on YouTube and on Instagram, is people who have trouble with their cowlicks. And I just had one of these comments like yesterday. When I talk to these people, I'm like, well, what does your barber say? Well, he doesn't really address it. I'm like, okay, so this guy is not cutting his own hair. Every person who has a problem with their cowlick who is seeing a barber, I guarantee that barber's paying attention and focusing on the fade. I guarantee that. But this guy doesn't know how to style his hair. The barber never took the 2 minutes to sit down and go, oh, your hair grows this way, by the way. Why are we looking past that? It's because we got our barber goggles on and we're worried about the fade. The other really common thing that you'll see online, like if you go look around YouTube for men's hairstyling channels, you'll find several channels that have millions of subscribers. And most of these subscribers are not cutting their own hair. Some of them probably are. But everybody who goes and gets a haircut and then goes to subscribe to YouTube to learn how to style their haircut is probably seeing a barber who's not worrying about styling hair. Probably seeing a barber who's not worried about growth patterns. Probably seeing a barber who's not fully knowledgeable about products. Probably seeing a barber who only uses his hairdryer to get hair off of his sneakers. That's when it becomes a problem. If you want to be more than just fades and knowing everything there is to know in your small little world, and you go, I want to make more, I want to have the higher quality service and the higher quality haircuts, what else can I do? You get outside of that little box and you realize people want to know how to style their hair. Clients, this is huge. You ever been to a barber battle? So I've been to a few barber battles, and what I noticed at barber battles is the people that judge the haircuts are not people off the street. The people that judge the haircuts are well-known barbers, people who are very experienced. And so doesn't that fact maybe hint to you that maybe your client can't see the best fade from a really, really good fade? You know what they can see is their cowlick sticking up. You know what they can see is the hard time they have the next day in the bathroom when they're trying to style their hair after you cut it. You know what they can see is when they walk into Target and they don't know which product to buy for their hair because you didn't tell them which one works for them. They can see all those things. So stop hyper-focusing on some aspects of the haircut and ignoring other aspects if you want to get out of your little bubble. So to wrap this all up, if you're like a ninja with the clippers and you're a total rookie when it comes to scissors, blow dryers, anything else with hair, and you're happy doing that and your career is everything you want it to be, freaking cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're one of the barbers who feels like you're spinning your wheels, you're doing the best fades you can do, you're trying to do them faster, you're trying to work longer hours in the day, you just can't get ahead, you can't get to that next level, maybe think about some of these things. I'm hoping that maybe when you started this video, you were in the other group and you couldn't see the value in a haircut that didn't have a great fade, and you didn't see the value in taking eight extra minutes to blow dry the hair thoroughly. I'm hoping now that you'll be able to see some of this value and see where you can grow by seeing maybe that it's worth learning something that you didn't know. I do apologize if I offended anybody, but again, some of these are like hard truths. And please, if you're gonna argue with me in the comments below, don't just like call me names. Like, give me your rebuttal, you know, like let's have an intelligent conversation here and turn this into something constructive. It doesn't have to just be like, oh, Andrew said barbers are bad. It's not all barbers and it's not all bad. These are just some things that I see that I used to do and used to think myself that I kind of don't see that way anymore, because now my box has gotten bigger and I realize that there's so much that I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you were into it.